companies, non-governmental agencies, religious institutions tend to only transform when a situation is untenable or there's some process or some market condition that makes it forces them to make a change, right? And the reason is because you actually, if you're going to transform or like improve a process, then you actually need to be willing to break things when you do the transformation, and that is super hard to stand up to that scrutiny. Prior to the time you have some major problem. And, transparency and other things come into play in these transformation efforts. You have to be willing to admit, sort of like you got to admit you have a problem. So but that doesn't necessarily work through the entire organization. So a retired exec and I the other day were talking about a couple places where I've seen agile or other transformations roll back after some type of regime change. So if the champion for this went away, or there was a reorg, or there was some financial impact, then you would see a lot of people come out of the woodwork to roll back parts of that change or the parts that they didn't like. And the phrasing and really that's the only reason this article exists, is for this phrasing. And their comment was that you see the white blood cells swarming the transformation and as an infection to eradicate it so that they can go back to the way they were, because the reality is not everybody's got the big picture and they don't always think about why we're doing this or what the alternatives would be. And so I just did this. This was supposed to be the corporate body, and you have, whenever you're doing a change, right, the leadership creates some position, and then you decide how you're going to implement the change. And you bring in new blood, you reorganize, you get some coaches in, you create change agents, you try and identify internal change agents, you make policy changes about what you're doing, you make big org changes. And while the heat's on, people will do some of this, right? People get excited. The problem is when the heat's off, right? Because the whole time there'll usually be passive resistance, or where people fake that they're adapting to it, not deliberately, maliciously, but they're like, oh, we're doing 90% of that. We just need to do this last 10%. If we close this eye and blink a little bit and look between these two fingers, it looks like we're doing exactly what they're asking, right? So people will go after that. And then when the pressure's off, usually a year in, maybe a little longer, 2-3 years in, usually a year, because you have annual goals, right? And the annual goals will change. And so after that year, especially if there's a regime change, the people that never bought in will start to come out of the woodwork and point all the failings. And transformation takes a long time. Like, for you to change how you operate at a personal level takes years, right? And if you're at a corporate level where you have thousands of people or hundreds of people or tens of thousands of people, then the change would take proportionally longer unless you can make it happen in parallel. So I really like this analogy. That's what this is really about, is that corporations operate as if the entities inside an organization will operate as if they're protecting the company, as if they were white blood cells swarming the transformation, attempting to eliminate it. And sometimes they're correct. The transformation's a bad idea. Other times they're wrong, and they're just delaying some problem that'll run down to the end. So I guess I really love the phrasing, and we talked a little bit about how these are passively resisted in the beginning. While you're in the transformation effort, a lot of people will just sit on the sideline, and then when the transformation effort rolls into the longer term phrase, or champions are reorganized or leave or do something else, then people will go into active mode, and that's really when you launch the white blood cells after the change, so that you can get back your power and other behaviors that you're used to. And that's it. So I hope everybody, this was supposed to be short, and the idea was, hey, when you're looking at a transformation effort, at what point do you recognize that the transformation may be in trouble, or that people are feeling the heat? And so maybe it's a good thing happening when you see the white blood cells trying to swarm and eradicate the change that you're trying to roll out.